So Connor, I'm going to let you introduce the team and we'll get things started.
Thank you, Dennis. So hello, everybody, and we're super excited to be here for this webinar. It's nice to spend, I'm assuming for most of you, lunchtime, or if you're on the West Coast, maybe it's first thing you're doing in the morning before you get started. You'll see that I'm here with two of my awesome colleagues, so Nicole Hargrove and Chanel Ford. They'll introduce themselves in more detail in a little while as they get talking. Well, actually, why don't you both just do a quick intro as well, just who you are and what your titles are and stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hargrove. I go by Cole, and I am the enterprise simulation leader here at Strategio. What I do is I've curated the content for the training, as well as I work with the technologists who are going through the training and as they move on to be onboarded with their clients. Happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Chanel Ford. I'm the lead talent strategist here at Strategio, and very much like my title says, I work on the talent side of things. So helping to find all of you wonderful technologists out there, also building relationships with, in partnerships with places like Blacks in Technology, and also working with Cole and helping everyone get geared up and ready to go on site with our clients. So very happy to talk to you all today.
So I see that we have multiple Connors, Chanels, and Nicoles in this group. So we'll ignore that. We'll just get rolling on because time is always of the essence when we're doing webinars. So, but if anyone wants to figure that out, that's fine as well. Also, I realized that we were going to share a presentation. Not sure if Natalia is able to do that on her side. If not, I've got it up in the background and I can click on it here.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Here? Yes, we can hear you. Good to share,
cool again.
good to share your screen. Okay, either way, Natalia will be on that in a moment. So I'm Connor, CEO and founder of Strategio. As we mentioned, we're here with Cole and Chanel. We're talking about breaking into tech, the disconnect between early career or entry-level technologists and the enterprise organizations, these big corporations that you're applying to work with. I see we've got, we're around sort of 30 people with us so far. Feel free to dump any questions in the chat as you go. We'll try and answer them as close to in the moment as we can, or we'll get to them throughout the conversation. We do want to make sure we leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So you're absolutely fine to ask us those at any time. Be confident, don't think you're an imposter. There's no such thing as a stupid question, especially when you're talking to us. So what are we here for then? So, or why am I talking to you, I should say? So I mentioned that I'm a CEO and founder of this company. I'm also on the Forbes 30 under 30 list for education. Just got added to that in a couple of months ago. I'm 29 years old. I'm mixed race, raised in the UK, between London, the Isle of Man. Moved out to New York when in 2016, spent 5 years there, and I've been in Miami for just over a year. So I'm here in Miami, Florida, and I'll be honest, it's not cold at the moment. So I'm sorry to, I always tease, but it's yeah, either way. So I'm here in Miami. Why are we in the first place even here with Blacks in Tech? We partner with Blacks in Tech to offer our Strategio scholarships, our paid training, and by the way, Natalia, we can see everything on your screen that you're doing, just so you're aware. So we're going well so far. So yeah, and we offer scholarships to Blacks in Technology community. We also offer full-time job placements and try to help people to get through tech in any way they can. So the first things first, right? Where you're here probably because you're applying to jobs, you're applying to hundreds of jobs at times, and you're trying to figure out what's this about? Like, why is no one responding to me? I have, let's say you even get those first interviews that you've applied to a job, they respond and you do the interview. You maybe even do the coding test, or maybe you even get through multiple rounds of interviews, and time again, you get ghosted. There's nothing worse. Why are people doing this to us? Why don't they answer me? And why aren't I good enough, right? They've got these open jobs. They say there's this hard time to find talent, the war on talent, and yet they're not willing to talk to you. So there's a disconnect. They don't fully understand your background, your resume, your educational experience, and your knowledge. They don't really understand how to get to that. and you don't necessarily know the ways to get them to look at you or to get them to be interested in your background. You may not have the technology skills or the specific wording or the professional development yet in place, which is, by the way, fine at such an early stage in your career. And that's some of the things we'll look to address during this conversation. Also, people talk about breaking into tech. I was reading something on Twitter just this morning, and it said, is this a good salary for an entry-level tech job? What are we talking about when we talk about tech? I think that's important to define, something we don't do enough. So many of us are on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Twitter, and we're saying, want to get into tech. But what are we talking about when we say tech? There's different job roles. We may not even know what they all are. And that's what we wanted to explain to you. It's fine to not know anything at this stage. It's fine to be lost. It's fine to be confused. It is a complicated thing, especially if you don't have the family support or the network or maybe university colleagues, people in your job might not know any of this. This could be a career pivot. It could be you've not been to school, you maybe just finished high school, or you've been to community college, or you've been to university and you still don't know necessarily the right way in. So when we're talking about tech, there's various different roles in place, right? We're talking about things like software engineering, software development. We're talking about infrastructure operations. You'll hear roles like site reliability engineering, cloud services. But then so there's some of the technology roles, and we'll talk in a lot of detail about those. But we're also talking about things like tech sales, right? Sales development representative, business development representative, recruiting. There's so many different positions. It could be an administrative type of role in a tech company. So we're not just talking about tech companies, because we see that the future is going where every company is going to be a tech company. If they're not doing it now, they're already too late, right? So banks are trying to become digital and technology companies. Law firms are trying to do the same thing. So you've got to differentiate tech by like big tech in terms of Google, Meta, Instagram, Uber, Airbnb, where they're like the big, modern tech companies. And you've got to differentiate getting into tech from a tech job perspective. They're two different things. And I think it's important when you're looking at this to have a strategy behind where you're going, right? So to know, I want to get into this, it suits my interests, my passions, my personality profile. And some of the reasons you probably want to break in will be things like, you've seen that tech is a stable industry. Your job may have been hindered by a pandemic, right? You may have been someone that worked in services, hospitality. You could have worked in a coffee shop, a warehouse, the list goes on. So you're probably thinking, I see those people in tech, they're making a ton of money, they get a lot more than I do, and their money is stable, and they can work from home, and all those things are facts, right? So it is true. It's a great industry, and that's why we want to stay in this and support people who want to break in the door. We want you to have that equity where you can advance and have opportunity and grow. So it's important as we build on this discussion. We'll tell some stories, we'll get to the facts, we'll give you things like exact technologies, we'll talk through applying to jobs. It won't just be me talking at you initially, but I like to set the scene. But remember when we just spoke about getting into tech, right? Remember this is not some like big curtain, and you will feel now like you're on one side of the curtain and that you have no idea what's going on the other side. And then you open the curtain and suddenly you're like, wow, I get it. It's actually not so much like that. This is just defining what the role you're looking for is, or the companies that you want to target look like, and then starting to get more knowledge, giving you the right resources about what to read, what to watch, what to listen to, who to network with, and how to do that. That's some of the stuff that's important. But again, setting the scene so that you really understand what you're actually trying to approach. So to give you some further insight into Strategio and why we are involved with this in the first place, like kind of adding to where we're going. Our company, Strategio, was founded specifically to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion for underserved and underrepresented groups in enterprise technology. So we actually proactively source people that aren't represented. So we're talking about people of color, Black, Hispanic. We're talking about women, gender diverse, veterans, women returning to work after childbirth, career pivots. We want to find a space for the folks who weren't here before. Our company as of today is 84% from underrepresented groups. That includes all 19 of us, many of which are here right now as well. So our technologists, shout out to all of you. and the likes of Cole, Chanel, and our other team members who are here listening as well. So we're big believers that you've got to have that intentionality in place. For example, 76% of people refer the same ethnic background for a job, and 66% refer the same gender for a job, according to National Center for Women in Technology. So if we have such a diverse team and completely from different backgrounds, everyone has a different original upbringing, socioeconomic status, different parts of the country, different race, ethnicity, and so on. We solve problems in a different way. And actually, we'll naturally refer, even if our biases come into play, they're being checked time and time again by everybody else's biases. And you can't necessarily just instantly remove bias from everything, but you can put intentionality in place to protect against that. So there are financial barriers to entry. Okay, that's one of the reasons we also exist. So when we talk about things like improving representation for these various groups, we're referring to the underrepresented groups and underserved groups in tech. We are looking at the moment, for an African-American family being around 45,000 US dollars as the median household income, 55K for Hispanic families, and 75 to 76K for white families. So that's the median household income. And you could get a starting salary in tech that completely breaks that and goes above that straight away. And we figured if people have to face that financial barrier, maybe they haven't gone to school in the first place because no one else in their family had done that. They didn't have the right guidance. They may have had all the aptitude, but not necessarily known the way to go, and didn't want to take on 200K worth of debt, like a typical computer science degree. So we actually invest in every person that comes through the door. We give out these scholarships, the Strategio scholarships we mentioned. So to give you an idea of our solution to diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech, I'm going to show you on this next slide. And I won't waffle for much longer. I will pass this on to my colleagues in a moment. But the solution that we have is source, invest, train, and deliver. We'll break this down throughout this conversation while also tackling these exact topics we're talking about. But to pass the mic to Chanel for a moment, she can give you a bit of an insight into what she does in terms of talent strategy and her knowledge in this space.
Hi, everyone. So I, again, am Chanel. I work on the talent team as the lead talent strategist, and it is a very multifold role, again, helping to facilitate and get technologists into our simulators, but also really meeting people where they're at and meeting individuals who are looking to pivot into technology. So going to things like career fairs or webinars or events hosted by Blacks in Technology are where I get to really understand what it is that early career talent needs, and what you all are looking for and need to be able to successfully get into technology. So from my end, I, do a lot of first round interviews for Strategio and specifically, and then partner with Cole and Connor on the more technical side of things. But what I want to talk to you all about today are ways in which you can help yourself, right? A lot of it is going out there and doing research. So I encourage everyone to research tech roles and what those look like. Read an article. If you see a new tech word that you don't know, if you don't know what DevOps is, look up DevOps and then look up what a DevOps job description looks like. Really do the research to try to familiarize yourself with the different opportunities within tech. Look up fintech, look up health tech, look up tech startups, and really just, again, try to understand and learn as much as you can about this field that you find yourself so passionate about. Another piece of advice I have for everyone is, when it comes to prepping for interviews or really putting together your resume, one, in terms of a resume, don't put anything that you aren't willing to talk about on there. If it's on there, it's fair game. And also be able to utilize your skills from other industries in your other life into the tech role. Some of your soft skills, a lot of your soft skills can be used in any tech opportunity. Being organized, being able to adapt and change fast. Those are all things that need to happen in this tech world too, because it's very innovative and very fast paced. So really think about those things. I also encourage people to write down what it is that they want out of an organization, a role, and a manager. What are the outcomes that you want? Just as much as they are interviewing you for the role, you're interviewing them to make sure that it's going to be the right organization and company for you, that's going to be the right manager that you need to report into. So don't be afraid And don't let what we call imposter syndrome creep up on you and not think that you're not good enough or you'll have to take whatever is being thrown at you. Yes, you want to roll, but you also want to be happy. That's why you're making this pivot and taking this chance, right? So those are some of the things that I really like to just dive deep in with everyone. And it's a great place to start, because knowing exactly what you don't want is just as important as knowing exactly what you do want, especially when it comes to this industry. So do your due diligence, and I'd love to see where everyone's at with it if they do that exercise. I'm going to now pass it back to Connor so he can tell you a bit more.
Thanks, Chanel. That was I always love hearing your knowledge around talent. How to break in the areas that you approach, the way that you have you cast such a wide net and make such an inclusive opportunity for people. So when part of this, I always want to relate this to like the real world stories that we see. Some of our technologists that we brought into Strategio so far, and we're talking about like people who have, let's say, a computer science degree, but then no one in their family have been to university, so first generation graduate, not really having the advice, right? So that same situation many of you are in, it's like you're looking at how do I actually, like, where do I go next? I don't know these answers. I don't know the tech to learn. Maybe you go to a boot camp that helps you out with some ideas in the evenings, but they're not necessarily like applying those tech skills to a specific role or like teaching you how to interview for that. And when we, this specific person I'm referring to, that was, he started working in a warehouse for a couple of months after he went to school because he wanted to break into tech, but he was like, I'm wasting my computer science degree here. Like I shouldn't be working in a warehouse. People that should be actually working in this industry, that can code, they can use cloud computing, they can use automation, and they can interview. So to me, it's like we need to continue to make a space. This is the disconnect we're referring to. So these large companies will do things like expect you to have a specific degree from a specific university with a specific GPA. But like the world that I've seen, like in the real world, right? And that's why I think it's important to like get together and like talk in these spaces, because we're advocating for people that do not have the ability to advocate for themselves. So we get together with chief information officers, chief technology officers, which are the top people in tech and IT in enterprise companies, right? So we host them, for example, on our DevOps Diversity podcast. So if you look on DevOps Diversity podcast on any podcast platform or Spotify or Apple, you'll see we've had engineering managers from Netflix, directors from Google, and senior vice presidents from various big banks have been on that podcast. So we talk directly with the industry all the time. And we are in a time where people want to change. I think especially since 2020, when industries, like it wasn't just, a lot of us in our lives have experienced being the only, right? Like depends where you went to school, and depends where you went to, where you got your first job. As a mixed race person, I very regularly found myself an only in many different environments. And we want to make sure that, like, while that we understand the problem, we need to make these companies more inclusive. It takes driving the change, right? It's not just about thinking about it or talking about it. So before 2020, a lot of people would talk about this, like diversity is important. But then after George Floyd, it was really real accountability. These corporations had to actually make a change and really start hiring the right people. But let's just put the facts out there. So if we're talking about 3% representation for Black or African-American women, for example, in tech, we're talking about 3%, right? We're talking about 1 to 2% for Hispanic women in tech. They're just two examples. So like if we're all going to the same place, like if one big company, if JP Morgan is going to the same place that Goldman Sachs is going to hire their talent, then guess what? Like you're not going to actually get anything new. You're not going to create any talent. You're just going to take from what's already existing. And that's really what this solution we're talking about here is to do. It's to create new talent. Right? I'm seeing things in the chat of people saying, hey, I work in this sector. I want to move into tech for this reason. I work in this sector, I want to move in for this reason, or I might be a fresh student that wants to get their first job. All of that is really important to assess and realize that you are the pipeline. You're the future of how to diversify the industry. Why is diversifying the industry important? Is it because we just want it? Or is it because there's actually facts behind why it's important? It's both, right? So we want it because we're part of that change, right? Or everyone in this call is part of it in some capacity. But more so, diverse teams are higher performing. So you increase cognitive diversity by having different perspectives. So if you have people from different racial, ethnic backgrounds, genders, and from different socioeconomic statuses and more, even neurodiversity, you're then going to have like such a different approach to a problem. If Nicole says, I tried to fix this bug in my code, I've tried 9 different solutions. And then Chanel steps in and said, well, I haven't actually tried at all. Let me step in and see what I can do. And that first attempt Chanel tries fixes the problem. We've got it, right? We've cracked the code. We've found a way to solve the problem. And then you're just looking at perspective. You're learning for ways to continue to increase your feedback and learn from other people. So all of that is part of it. It's part of the story. But on top of this, for me, like the reason we launched this business and we care so much about early career talent and we care so much about underrepresented talent is it's not just because diverse teams just happen to be more high performing because of what we just said. It's also like the real world aspects. So I'm a believer that if you have to solve problems in your everyday life, then you can solve problems in your workspace. And what I'm referring to here is engineering and development. That's one of these roles we're going to talk about. Engineering is problem solving. That is all it is, right? So you're looking at, we want to build a software solution to fix a problem. Or the problem, we've already built a solution and there is a bug and we have to find the bug and fix that application to make it work. Or we want to make a change to an existing application to make it work faster or to provide a higher quality solution to the same problem. And all of this is done to provide maximum business value, right? You're building or you're changing or fixing applications to provide value to a user, which is usually a customer of the business that usually generates revenue for the business, or it could be an internal customer, like development teams would have internal, like other people within their own organization that they're serving. So when we're looking at problem solving, we're focusing on like taking away all the noise, tech, development, coding, programming, engineering, problem solving. That is what we're trying to do here. We're looking at how to solve problems, and the best people at this solve problems using logic. So now, this is why I care so much about bringing in everyone from every background into tech and making a change here. If you had to walk through a specific neighborhood, right, where it was dangerous, you had to avoid that group over there, you had to jump a fence to get to here, you had to run to catch the bus because it was the last one and it would take you 3 hours to walk home. If you had to figure out how to balance a few dollars a week, or you had no parent was ever home because they were working 2 jobs, one of your your only parent was trying to work 2 jobs, you've had to solve problems your whole life, right? I share different stories. One of them, I was in Cuba a few years ago, 2017, and speaking at a conference called DevOps Days. It's like DevOps Days is one of the biggest DevOps conferences in the world. They have them in different locations. And Cuba was amazing for me because it was a place that had so few resources in terms of tech and a lot of other environments, but they didn't have available internet or available cell phone networks. Yeah, I met one of the best engineers of my life in that place. He now lives in Spain, a guy called Manuel. And he's actually a Docker captain. Docker is one of the technologies Cole will speak about in a moment. And the reason I wrote an article on devops.com, if you type in Cuba, Connor Dellenbank DevOps, it will come up, or maybe someone can share it for us in a moment in the chat. But this article just talks about how people with sometimes very little can be the best problem solvers, because in Cuba, if you're driving to work in your 1950s car and it breaks down, then guess what? Who's going to fix that for you? You've got to get out, get into that, lean over the hood. We call it the bonnet in England, but you lean over the hood of the car and you've got to fix and tinker and make changes. And you've got to use logic and solve problems. And guess what? Over time, that problem-solving mindset of scarcity and finding ways to make existing things work is a really good quality that actually creates great developers and great engineers. So if any of you are thinking, I don't have much, right? Like, what do I have? I don't know anything. I don't have that much available to me. Look at when you've solved problems in your life. Look at where you've used logic. You've had to follow patterns to create solutions. That is stuff that people love to talk about, right? Like we have an example of one of the folks in our training at the moment. He's an NYU graduate, and he's a computer science graduate. And at the same time, he actually spent time during the pandemic to support his family in the kitchen of, they're both chefs, his parents. And he talks about the environment there. He's like, I have to solve problems under pressure. I have to figure out really quick solutions and find them. I can't, there's constant pressure. If you can have scenarios like that, like I'm used to pressure, I'm used to solving problems, here's where I use logic, as well as the actual ability to use some of the technologies and tools, people more so just want you to be able to talk in a confident way about the basics at an entry and early level in your career. So I'll take a pause for a moment and pass this to Nicole, who's going to talk to us a lot more about the technology side of things. So Cole, the floor is all yours.
All right, so if you could skip to my slides. There you go, thanks. So when we start talking about technology, it's not, I wanted you to understand that breaking into technology is way different from when I first started in 1997. But it was all about, back then, it was all about having these degrees and making sure that you can come out and program and things of that nature. So now what I'm excited about is how the script has been flipped over the years, where we're getting to see that people who did not have a traditional background, traditional degrees, are now in technology and picking up and being able to learn these different tools within technology. So kudos to all those who have pivoted their careers and who are in the process of pivoting their careers into getting into tech. So one of the things that you must understand when you're talking about technology, it's not enough to just know what the tool is and what the tool does. It's all about understanding the concepts of why do we even have this tool in place? And so why does this tool help the team that I'm working on? And how effective is it in the environment, the enterprise environment that we're working on? And so what we've done in our training in our simulator is to be able to have you have the concept of why, how, and what. So whether this concept goes beyond just being inside of our simulator, but understand the why behind you're doing something. Don't just say, oh, I'm using AWS and I know how to, do an EC2 server instance, and now I know how to, that's what I've done with it. But why did you have to do that? Give yourself the understanding of what that concept is. Understand the background of why are we even on cloud in the first place? What was it like before cloud? And then understanding the purpose, like I said, what's in that environment at that enterprise. Why are we adopting this technology? And then the how of it, because companies do not just take on technology because it's the next hot thing. Companies take on technology because it's going to solve problems, like Connor has been saying. It's all about solving a business problem. It's cute to be able to say, well, I created this game and I know how to, do that program piece with a game, but can you talk about the pieces that you put inside your game that, did you use control flows like ifs or while statements? Did you use any kind of algorithms or data structures? The point being is, what problem are you solving? And so companies, before you even get to the tasks of the what, companies are concentrating on how can I adopt these technologies into my enterprise? And when you adopt a technology into your enterprise or a concept into your enterprise, there are all kinds of things that need to happen within that enterprise to be able to say, yes, we're going to go with that. You may have to change some of the processes. You may need to understand some tools. You may need to do some proof of concepts of tools. And you want to understand and make sure that you have problems that need to be solved. That's what the use cases are all about for the particular enterprise. And then focus on the what of what it is. That's when you get your hands on. Don't just go straight to the hands-on task when you're breaking into technology. Understand those concepts, because it's going to go from the head to the hands. And, create for yourself an information library. That means bookmarking stuff, going out to different websites, reading about things and understanding the trends that are going on in technology. You can start doing what we call an information library and being able to just tick things off to make sure that you can go back to whatever it was again. So if you're going to break into this industry, understand the concepts of the why, understand how it's being used, have a use case that's associated with it, and then being able to say what the what is. And, for our simulator, we're making the training and the knowledge scalable and accessible to everyone, because we know that work schedules are different. When you're in this program, it's a full-time program, but we've also taken away the presentation type formats and use documents to be able to have you access it on demand. So we're not tying you to the desk. You can go work wherever you want to work through this information, because that's the world we work in now. It's a work from home environment, but really it's a work wherever you want to work, as long as you're getting some outcomes from, long as your enterprise is getting outcomes from you. And the other thing too is you have to be cross-functional. I know that we get myopic and say, well, I only want to do this piece in technology. But if you really want to be successful, look, I've been in this field for over 20 years. And the thing that's helped me to grow the most is when I worked on projects that were cross-functional and gave me a cross-functional skill set. So I could see the picture from end to end and then be able to implement in different areas. And so that's what our simulator does, is that we're giving you cross-functional skills so that you can go off and be working as in cloud and DevOps, and then working as a software developer, engineer, and test, working with test automation, and then working with, maybe you like the other end of that, where you're wanting to make sure that from end to end of that application, from initiation to development all the way to deployment, you want to add some optimization in there to make sure that the application is running effectively. You might want to be that site reliability engineer, or you might want to focus on full stack development. And that includes looking at creating the UIs, what the user interface is going to look like for them, for the users. It also includes looking at the back end. So these are that cross function. You got to keep your mindset on, yes, there's a lot to learn, but I want to make sure that I'm learning the concepts behind it, and I can be able to talk from a business standpoint on solving problems and use cases. And then I want to put my hands on it, okay? So if you can move to the next slide for me, please. So when we start talking about our simulator, it's not just, I think that, can you back up one more for me? There you go, thanks, I appreciate that. So when we start talking about technology and Strategio Simulator, we don't just focus on the tech. We do also focus on the career development side of the house, and I'll get to that in the next slide. But what I want to show you here is these are some of the technologies that corporations are looking for. When, as Chanel said, when you're reading those job descriptions, if you don't understand the terms that are in those job descriptions, please, ma'am, sir, boys, children, everybody, cats and dogs, get on Google and Google it. Look it up, get a definition, put it in your own words, be able to articulate it. You don't have to be all extra and feel like, oh, I'm such an expert. I don't know how to do this because I'm not an expert. I've never run into that term before. Like I said, I've been in technology for over 20 years. I haven't heard of half of this stuff until I actually sat down and looked at the material, right? I don't just do buzzwords. If you're going to come work and be a part of our simulator, like Chanel said, if it's on your resume, it's fair game. So take stuff off your resume if you don't know how to articulate it. But when we start looking at the technical skills that are out in the marketplace and what we put into our simulator, we have focused on understanding what DevOps is. Don't just come to me and say it's bringing dev and ops together. You know, everybody can say that, but I challenge you to explore more in these different areas. Cloud is a must-have if you're going to be in this industry. You have to get some sort of cloud knowledge. And I'm not going to just focus in on, we know what the top clouds are: AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, you know, and on and on and on. I got to throw up IBM's cloud because I spent 21 years there. So, and I helped to sell that cloud. But I just want you to understand, you've got to get some cloud skill. And here in the simulator, the training that we do, we focus in on AWS. You can't just be out here in these streets without having that cloud knowledge. Of course, when you start working with applications are going to have some sort of data that's associated with it. It needs to be, that data needs to be stored somewhere. And sometimes it's stored in a relational database, and sometimes it's stored in a non-relational database, which is NoSQL. Somebody put in the chat, what's NoSQL? See, if you didn't know what it was, go look it up. So other databases that you might be working with has to do with MySQL and Postgres. These are terms that we hear out here, right? So when you're working in a programming environment, you're going to be able to, in our simulator, work with Java and Python. And then there's tools that are associated with that, which are Eclipse and IntelliJ. You also need to be able to do the testing, and we use JUnit for some of that. And so I'm not going to belabor all of the points here. Just know you're going to get access to this. But remember, breaking into tech, these are the skills that we're seeing in the marketplace based off of our relationships with our enterprise clients. And if you want to break into this, you've got to get these skills here. You've got to get these skills. So for my last point, moving to the next one, which is, it's not all about the tech. What I've seen over my time frame, and even within myself, when I broke into tech, I was very shy. I'm an introvert, even though I'm on this call right now. But over the years, I have made strides to be able to break out of that shell and move out of my comfort zone. I can't say that enough. If you're going to get into tech, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to fail, and you got to fail fast. I was someone who was really about perfectionism and saying if I couldn't get it right the first time, I called myself all kinds of unkindly names. I did self-negative talk. But in this field, you got to understand failure is your way to success, because if you don't understand and learn from that failure, you're going to stay stuck. So this is some of the things that we talk about in our professional development and career development courses that are sessions that are part of the simulator. We talk about being able to build your brand, right? All of us are a brand. And so, what does that look like on LinkedIn? What does that look like on these other social channels you're using? Even in your GitHub, that is your brand. You can change what your GitHub looks like. We also have, we just talked about imposter syndrome last week. It's real, but it's something that we can get through, right? If we have these things and these notions in our minds that we can't do something, because, in this community, in the Black community, we have been told over and over and over again that we are underachievers, and it's not true. And I want to dispel that myth right now. Whatever you can put your mind to, you can do it. The next thing I want to say is we just talked about networking. When you get into this industry, you have got to network, and you can start doing that right now by connecting with any one of us on LinkedIn, connecting in this chat. And I see some people who are doing that. You have got to get your networking on. And I'm going to leave it right there. I want to go to the final slide. So what things can you do right now? Okay. I want to commend and applaud you for stepping up and getting on this call today, because you said to yourself, I'm getting in this industry. I'm knocking down doors. I'm doing what I need to do. And so that was your first step. Now what can you do? Ask questions. You've been doing that in the chat. I appreciate all of you sharing your stories with us. But there are free things that you can do right now. Some of you all may be already taking advantage of some of these things. If you want to be that coder, I used to do coding when I first started in the industry. There's something called Free Code Camp, and they have pathways that you can go through. If you want to do front end, back end, you want to be full stack, they have pathways that you can do, and all of this stuff is free. W3 Schools has some free information for you to use as well. And start building, right? So get the concepts, get the use case of how corporations are using these technologies, and then get your hands dirty. Even if you're somebody who doesn't want to code, you still got to get your hands dirty with stuff. When I was an architect, my role was to be able to talk to the C-suite, and that was CIOs, CTOs, and talk to them about what their business goals were, and then come with a technical solution for them. So what I had to do was get my hands dirty with some things. I said to myself, I can move on from this. But then in order for me to be effective in what I was doing, I had to play around with some things. And so start building now. Get you a free tier account on one of these cloud service providers that I mentioned previously. AWS has one. I put a link in there. Watch those YouTube training videos. People are out there sharing their knowledge and their content with you. Take advantage of those things. Set aside some time during the week. I know it's hard. You didn't work 8 hours and you tired. You still got to do all this other stuff, personal stuff. Take the time. Set aside maybe an hour. Start with 30 minutes. Then go to an hour. You got to set aside that time. To get in this field is no game. I can't stress that enough that, people, you getting all these other things out here that's saying make 6 figures in 5 days. That's unrealistic. Let me just tell you that. That's unrealistic. You got to put blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. Just like you would do with any other job that you had previously, any other industry that you worked in, you have got to be able to understand that if I don't put the work in, I'm not going to succeed. And so I'm going to pass it back to one last thing. When you're doing these tasks, make sure that people know what you're doing. Go out to Medium, create articles, create blogs. You'll see that on the technologies that we work with, as well as each one of us that are on the internal leadership team, we create blogs. And so you can start being a voice in this community right where you are right now. Even though you feel like I'm new, I don't know what I'm getting into, it's okay because other people are feeling that way too. And I'm just gonna land on, like I said before, you gotta put blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. Don't get wrapped up in all this other stuff that's saying, do it in 5 minutes, do it in 6 days or whatever. It's gonna take time and pace yourself. So I congratulate you and commend you for wanting to get into this industry. Connor, I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Thank you, Cole. Not sure how to follow such an amazing person or an amazing talk. So grateful to work alongside you here and to see you inspire people every day. I want to echo what Cole has just said, and we are going to open the floor for a few questions in a moment, and we have been trying to respond to you in the chat. But it's constant, right? Like you're looking on Twitter, you're looking on TikTok, and you're like, oh, that person just got into tech. The same thing we started with, they just got into tech. You get this sense that it's like the same kind of like crypto, NFTs, like just jump in, it's going to be all good. This is a grind. This is weeknights. It's your lunch times. It's waking up early. It's working on the weekends to learn, to break in. Thousands of people trying to do the same thing. The reason the jobs pay well is because they're skilled professional roles, right? So other things to look at, and we haven't talked to you about any of the kind of salary ranges you should expect. I would don't think you're going to earn 6 figures first job. Like there's people in big tech companies, Google, etc., Netflix, they might earn that straight away, but they are the top of the top getting into tech. I'm not saying you're not that, by the way, just sharing that those aren't every single job. You're going to probably be somewhere in the range of 40 to 70K. That's the realistic entry level roles. We're talking about things like for developers, for engineers, yes, and even including some of these other roles, like if it was a sales role, a recruiting role, then you're going to have a bonus, probably a bonus and commission that comes with your base salary. So that will be a different level, but I would assume a lower base with commission if it was more of a sales and target driven role. And for roles that relate to output and outcomes in the sense of building technology, products and services, you should expect somewhere in that original range where I said 40 through to 70. And over time, 2 years in, 3 years in, maybe you're trying to break that 100K figure and beyond. And also if you live in certain places, even though we work remotely now, you may have access to those kind of salaries. Long term, yes, then you can go 100, 150, 200K. These are all possible figures and beyond working in these large companies we're talking about. So just wanted to share some of those with you. Quickly to respond to Mia, I saw you in the chat saying about ADHD. Firstly, thanks for transparency. We operate with extreme transparency in Strategio and never hide anything because we always want to share our best and every part of ourselves. You're not alone. Many of us have ADHD, especially in tech. It's a very normal part of neurodiversity, we should say. So learning in your way is completely fine. Trying to remove all of the trouble, all of the complication, and think, what am I specifically trying to achieve, right? So you don't need to look at this, I need to learn 15 different things. Even one of the folks in the chat who I responded to about data, I think it was Okal, I think it was, I responded to you a moment ago, talking about data science. You don't have to know every single piece. You don't have to know machine learning, natural language processing, AI yet. You can look at what you need to use to get to that stage. We're talking Python, R, math, statistics, communication, business-related skills like being able to talk to people and collaborate. Over time, you learn how to get the machine to learn for you, machine learning, right? You use those basics to expand on it. Just like if you go to a dance class, you need to learn the basic steps to learn how to dance. If you want to learn yoga, you've got to learn the basic stretches to become a yogi. If you're a track runner, you've got to learn to run slow before you can learn to run fast, before you can start sprinting, or you're going to trip over. Same thing happens here in tech. So really important to look at. So when you're looking at things like boot camps, or do I go to university, or how do I break in? Look at which ones have the possibility to get you the job in the end. Are the skills related to what enterprise companies need? I saw one of you talking about you did for front-end developer boot camp. That's great. That's awesome. I would also say that don't just silo yourself to one specific role. It may be what you love, but you may break in through a few other things as well. Your communication skills and ability to interview come actually before your even ability to be a front-end developer, as crazy as that sounds. While knowing front-end dev, maybe learn some back-end skills as well. You'll just increase your ability to get a job and to try new things. That front-end kind of visual elements of what you do will apply really well to other roles as well. And to be able to empathize with your tech colleagues about what they do and how they do it is important. So still going and learning some of the other free resources we've shared would be useful for the person that wrote about front-end dev. And also knowing that front end is one of the most popular things in boot camps, so you'll likely have very high competition. Not putting you off, just sharing that where you're at and giving you that direct feedback so that you understand what the industry looks like. So the last thing we'll share, and I will open up now for questions, look at what gets you the job. Breaking in the door is what's important. I would try, if salary is not the biggest thing right now and you can think about the long term in the future, get in, you build your network once you're in the door. Once you're in a company, you know other people, you get better advice than if you're sitting at home, even if we're sitting at home in this world. But you get my point in terms of sitting at home, not having a job versus having one. I think try and get in the door, do things that like spread your skills out. Don't stick to one silo or one specific niche right now. Learn, get feedback and grow, and just work super hard. I know I'm not trying to make hustle culture a thing. That's different to what we're talking about. But hard work when you have nothing is super important. I don't think any of us would be here today talking to you if we hadn't done the hard work to get here. And I'll be honest, we still work like dogs because you just have to. Like, to be successful, you've got to work hard, and that's something that not enough people are telling you. But I'm not telling you to go and just grind. It's a difference. Mental health, physical health are important. We all care about that too, but have to push and join a company. Who's the colleague of yours that works harder than you? Sorry, that is more higher performing. Learn their skills, absorb them. I will pause. Feel free to, if you want to unmute, you can ask us questions, or you can put your hand up, or you can launch them in the chat right now. I'll see if I missed anything in the meantime.
Connor, I have a question. So I just want to be clear that Strategio actually will pay to train. I don't know, that lead might have gotten
How did I leave that
missed.
part out, Dennis?
It might have gotten missed, but
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear that these programs and the companies that are hiring are looking specifically for talent that is work ready. I mean, these are practitioner level skills that you'll be learning. So it isn't theory. These things are actual skills that companies want. So when you are going through this, it's not just an academic exercise. You'll be putting this to practice. So if you could just kind of explain that piece of it real quick.
I should have done. We're trying to move so far from doing a sales pitch essentially that we want to make this answering.
Yeah, don't bury
questions.
the lead.
I forgot to tell you what we even do. To be very clear, folks that are listening, Strategio, while we do have a selection process that you have to get through that, and we believe it's made for early career and entry level folks, but it still means interview, do a bit of a technical assessment that is made for entry level, and then a third interview, which is more of a technical interview about what you know at this point, whether it's a boot camp or a degree or self-taught. But self-taught developers, boot camp graduates, and university graduates are all the people that we focus on. When you join Strategio, we give you a scholarship of $5,000 with no income sharing, no clawback. So you get a job afterwards working with us, you do not pay us back a penny. The money does not come from you, it comes from major corporations. And we raised $2 million to get the company off the ground in the first place. So we pay you to train. Pretty much no one in the country is doing this, apart, maybe they'll give you free training. I think 3% of boot camps are free, and the average cost is $14,000 US. But it's 8-week training we provide with Cole, and in the future with counterparts of Cole. That will be covered so that you're not sitting at home wondering how to pay bills. You can focus on learning. Once you get a job with Strategio, which requires passing interviews with our clients, you would then be on 60K starting salary, and you would get an increase of 5,000 every 6 months in our program up to 80K. And then you join our clients and begin working on a full-time salary with that client after 2 years. So that's in a nutshell. And if one of the team could drop in the selection process into the chat, you basically go to that website, fill out that form, and then the talent strategy team start talking with you about how to get into the program.
So to be clear, you learn, they pay you, and they give you a job. It doesn't get any better than that. I don't think there's, like the kind of said, there's nobody else who's doing that. So thank you for clearing that up. And now, if anybody wants to ask a question, you need to put it in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, I'll unmute your mic. We have a couple minutes, maybe time for 1 or 2 questions.
I saw a question here. If you're unclear of what path you want to take, what should you do? I think that's really, it's a great question. It's multiple things, including what you're doing right now, right? Networking, add people on LinkedIn, ask them questions. I'd love to grab, I'm trying to break into tech, was wondering if you'd do a Zoom coffee with me. I'm looking to ask some basic questions about how you got your role. People will not turn you down to ask that question. You're not selling them something, you're just asking for a bit of advice. Attend as many different webinars as you can to learn. Type that literal question into Google, type it into YouTube. I'm not exaggerating when I say this, like these are resources that are there for everybody, but also look at how your brain operates. Are you a super confident social type that maybe wants to do a role that involves things like selling, customer facing or recruiting, for example? Or are you a person that is technical, a bit maybe more introvert, loves actually the computer aspect of this? Maybe coding and programming and these type of roles would really suit you as well. There's a lot of different, you've got to keep on learning though. This is an early stage. So that kind of question just means you need to spend more time doing these kinds of things, networking and asking others how they got to where they are today.
And I'll wrap by saying the Black Technology Foundation, we have a Slack community of over 7,000 members. Definitely go in there. You can join for free, ask questions. And also we're working on an assessment tool to help you determine what your strengths are, what might be transferable, and where your talents might lead you from an IT career perspective, and associate that with the job titles and the associated pay with said job titles. So hopefully we'll have that done soon. But we are at time. I'm sure there are more questions. I'm sorry if you have questions that we didn't get a chance to answer them on this particular webinar, but you can reach out to us directly. I am more than happy to field any questions directly. Go to the foundation website, that's blacksintechnology.net, and click on the nonprofit link. That'll take you to us, and I'll make sure that we get you over to the Strategio team. Feel free to tell your friends. Don't make this a secret. We want as many folks involved as possible, and we're looking to help and support as best we can. With that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their busy schedule to join us. Connor and team, you guys are awesome. I don't know if, Nicole, I might have to, bring you on for a couple other webinars, and, I need a little bit of hype because you brought the heat today. But thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you guys out there in cyberspace.
Thank you, Dennis and Blacks in Technology, for hosting us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It was awesome. Looking forward to talking with you all in the future. Cheers.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Bye.